So a short time ago, I put a video out about the book Advanced Magick for Beginners by Alan Chapman and how it really kicked off me starting to do magic a lot more consistently. And like so many other people have said, when you start practicing magic, you start to notice synchronicities. And I had one such synchronicity that I wanted to share with you, which, well, it was really appropriate to what I was struggling with. Because in the video, I was talking about this back and forth in my mind I was having about whether I stick to a kind of chaos magic framework or whether I go down one of the initiatory systems. It was only a few days after I filmed that video. I woke up one morning, checked my emails, and there was this email, which I'll put up on the screen, from a company called Envato Elements, and it's where I get my B-roll for my videos. I pay a subscription every year and it allows me to use the B-roll that I use in these videos. And the email from them was titled Chaos Packaging, Love It or Hate It. That just got my attention. It just piqued my interest because I thought I probably need to read this email. Within the email was a link to an article that they'd written about chaos packaging. When I went through the article, it was like they were talking about chaos packaging, but really what it was saying to me was, might be a good idea to stick with the chaos framework, at least for the time being. And so what I've done is I've taken some of the headings from that article and thought about them in terms of what makes a chaos framework such a good approach for me personally, and maybe for you too. Now, this isn't bashing on initiatory systems at all. If you want to go down that route, do what works for you. So the article talks about the features of chaos packaging. So one of the first headings that they talk about is that it's experimental and bold. And if we think about that from a chaos magic perspective, chaos magic is experimental, isn't it? Anything goes, maybe not everything, but you're not being confined to a certain set of exercises or rituals. You are trying things out, seeing what works and seeing what feels right for you. And the bold bit as well, you have to be bold, you have to be brave to try things out. You are stepping into the unknown, you're doing things you've never done before. You're doing things that maybe other people might view as weird, makes no sense. It's bold in terms of action, but also bold in terms of thinking and believing in what you're doing. The next heading that they talked about in terms of chaos packaging was layered collage and mixed media. When you think about collage, you're bringing different elements together. When I do artwork, I like to do a bit of collage. It's pulling out those images or words that I feel drawn to in that particular moment that I think work well together or that resonate with me in some way about how I feel in a certain moment or how I feel about a particular subject. So chaos magic is about that layering different elements, not feeling that you need to stick with a certain theme, if you like, but taking different elements and bringing them together to form a whole. So if, for example, you're putting a ritual together, you might be taking elements or symbolism or materials that maybe other people wouldn't necessarily put together, but for the purposes of that ritual, they work. And in some ways, it's about having that confidence in yourself to do that and to feel that those things will work. The next heading that the article talked about was vivid, high contrast color palettes. When I think about chaos magic, I see it in my mind as very vivid, very bright and bold and punchy. And although we're talking about occultism and that's the hidden stuff, what I'm thinking of is that chaos magic almost like demands to be seen, putting yourself out there. It's not something that wants to be ignored. It's like, look at this. But even though it might be done behind closed doors, I don't know if I'm making sense. When I think of chaos magic, I don't think of it in terms of muted colors or pastels. It's just this really bold, vibrant, punchy, magical framework. A lot of sort of perhaps fizz attached to it. The next heading I felt was really interesting. So they had written imperfection as identity. Sometimes I can get caught up in not doing things or putting off doing certain workings because I'm worried about getting it quote unquote wrong, or whichever entities I might be working with, they might see it as not perfect. Whereas really deep down, I believe that if our intentions are coming from a genuine place, I feel that is far more important than something looking perfect, which I don't think perfection exists anyway. It's just something that we continually aspire to, but we cannot quantify in any way whatsoever. And I'm just as guilty of doing that. So we really need to try and let go of perfection. But the article is saying really that imperfection is an identity. We're not trying to aim for perfection. We're actually standing in our imperfection. We're not ashamed of it. We are imperfect. We make mistakes all the time. And it's not to say that we shouldn't aim to be good people, do good in the world. It's not about making excuses for where we fall short, but the fact that just because we fall short, it doesn't make us bad people. We need to embrace our imperfections, and if we can work on them and refine them, then great. But it's not something that we should be ashamed of. And just like our magic, just because our magic may not meet up to our expectations or our standards, I mean, that doesn't mean it's any less powerful. That doesn't mean to say it's not going to work. And also it's a learning opportunity. If after we've done a working, we review it and we think, okay, well, maybe next time I could do it like this, or I could do it on this particular day at this particular time, then do it. This is all about learning. We don't learn really unless we get things wrong. So one of the other sections on this article is also how to design chaos packaging effectively. So when I thought about this, it was the chaos package, the chaos as an identity. So if we choose our identities to be chaos magicians, what does that package look like? What does that identity look like? The first thing they say is to start with intent and don't chase trends for the sake of it. Chaos magic for me has always been the opposite of chasing trends, because we're not trying to fit into a trend, we're doing our own thing. Chaos magic is very punk, isn't it? It's very anti-dogma, it's pushing back against that, it's forming its own identity. I guess each chaot forms their own identity, their own way of doing magic. And when we're thinking about creating our magic as chaots, one thing for me is really tuning into what resonates. What do I feel in my heart is going to connect me in with the magic on a deeper level? I'm finding as I do more magic, I think that's really helped me to refine what I'm drawn to. But if at any point that doesn't appeal to me anymore, I wouldn't stick with it for the sake of sticking with it. I'd have to kind of figure out what's going on there, whether it's I'm finding the work harder and whether I need to kind of just keep going with it, or whether really I've come to the end of that period or that phase of working within that kind of belief system or that model or that paradigm or whatever you want to call it, and something else is calling to me. I'm sure there are perhaps trends that happen in the occult or on the kind of the more social media aspect, but as chaos magicians we might observe that they're going on, and if we decide to get involved with them, it's because we want to, but not because we're chasing anything in particular. The next thing the article says about chaos packaging is staying true to your brand personality. And again, this is what I was just talking about, who we are as chaos magicians in terms of what pulls us in, what really resonates with us, what we get fired up with. I think one of the key elements of doing magic is when we're passionate about it, when we really feel it, when we're fired up to do it. And that doesn't mean to say that whenever we perform magic we have to be high energy, because sometimes I think magic calls for the energy coming down. It does for me anyway. So we don't always have to be high energy, but it's that staying true to what really captures our imagination and makes us really taps into what we believe in and what lights us up, I guess. I think that's really important. Personally, I think that the more magic you do, the more refining you will get with that. That's what I'm finding as I'm doing. It's really kind of stepped up a lot since I've started doing more magic. I'm really getting a sense of what fits, and I guess you don't know that, do you, until you start doing it. So this other heading is dive into colours, imagery and textures that resonate with you and your target audience. I mean, obviously they're talking about packaging for other people, but diving into colours, imagery and textures that resonate with you. This to me speaks about the boldness of chaos magic and incorporating things that trigger the different senses. Any of those things that you think will enhance your magic in some way. Depending on what I'm doing, I do like to have, I love candles anyway. I think candles kind of really tune me into stuff. Incense a lot of the time, not all the time. I do think that kind of helps to focus me in. Colours I find are important for me on a psychological level. It helps me to increase that kind of connection with the magic and increase my belief in the magic working. I'll be honest, I'm not really someone who's worked with sound a lot. When I have done some rituals, I've had particular pieces of ambient music on in the background because I knew that they would bring a certain mood to it, but also I didn't want something that would distract me from the ritual. Sound is something I have to be careful of because I can get caught up in it and it can take me away from what I'm meant to be focusing on. And textures, maybe it's certain items of clothing that you prefer to wear for your rituals. Some systems, they talk about wearing a cloak. I've never been drawn towards that. I did purchase a specific item of clothing that I wear only when I'm doing my workings, and that works for me. I I think sometimes people mean well. Sometimes people think that things have got to be done a certain way because that's how they're done. Well, let's try something different. If you don't feel good doing something or wearing a particular thing, try doing something that you do feel good in and see what happens with your magical results. The next one made me smile. So it's make sure to avoid pure clutter, and that hierarchy and brand message are 100% readable. So I'll take the first part of this first of all. So avoid pure clutter. My magical working space can get pretty messy. And I think on a psychological level, when my environment is cluttered, my mind is cluttered. I get irritable. I feel on edge. I don't like it. So keeping my magical space relatively tidy is important. Equally, I do an inventory of the things that I've got. If I feel I'm overrun a bit, then I start to feel uncomfortable with that. Like the other day, I opened my drawer in my cupboard and I've just got so much incense, it's ridiculous. I don't even know how I will use all of it, and that makes me uncomfortable. I don't like to have too much. I like to have what I need and not much more. And it's about not cluttering your actual practice. Sometimes I think we can get into a habit of buying lots of things, lots of materia, and that if we have lots of things in our actual rituals and our spell work, that's going to make it more powerful, but that's not necessarily the case. We can have minimal things on our altar, we can use minimal things in our spells, I believe, and that's okay. Obviously, if you're working from a grimoire or a book and there are certain things that it says you need, personally I would follow that or adapt as I could, but otherwise I don't think we need to buy things for the sake of buying things for our magic. If we're purchasing items because we truly feel that that's going to help, that's different. But I think sometimes we get into a bit of a consumerist mindset where we just have to have all the things, otherwise the magic's not going to work. And I don't believe that's true. So the second part of this heading on that article was that hierarchy and brand message are 100% readable. I don't know about hierarchy because as far as I'm concerned, chaos magic isn't about hierarchy. It's not about dogma. It's not about people being above other people, although let's face it, I'm sure there are chaos magicians out there who think they are above other people. But hierarchy, I don't know if that necessarily comes into it, but definitely brand message. And for me, brand message in the chaos magic sense is that you're getting your message across clearly in your magic. What you want, you are translating into your magic so that it can be picked up and taken away and worked with, and it's very clear as to what you want. Because if your messaging isn't clear, then the entities that you're working with are probably not going to pick up on it. And it's a bit like when I did the lots of sigils, working through Gordon White's sigil magic course that's on YouTube, and he has a section where he talks about getting clear on your desires, and there are a few exercises he takes you through to do that. When you're refining your desires in order to create your sigils from those desires, if your desires are not clear, then your sigils are not going to be clear and the messaging will get lost. So having a clear brand message that's readable in terms of your magic means that you're increasing your chances that your desire is going to be interpreted in the way you want, and that you're more likely to get the result that you're asking for. I thought this was a really timely email to get in my inbox, even though it had nothing to do with chaos magic. The information in it really got me thinking about how to apply this to my internal conflict about whether to stick with a chaos framework or go down a more initiatory route. And definitely I feel more comfortable about sticking with the chaos framework, at least for the time being. It gives me more freedom to try different things out and refine what magic and what approaches and what paradigms work best for me. If you've got anything you want to add about why you love working from a chaos framework, let me know in the comments. Thank you so much for watching. Take good care, and I will see you soon.